Hi everyone, welcome back to another edition of Stay Caffeinated. This is the third installment of my painting process. Hopefully a lot of this will now start to make sense. So what we talked about last time was the different types of things that are in my paint and every paint. That's your binder, your solvent, your pigment, and your additives. Those four things make up paint. So today we're going to talk about what I call now, what I arrived at. I call this caffeinated color. After those several years of experimenting with different additives and binders, I've arrived at something that works. And I'm going to tell you exactly what I use and the ratio to make my medium. Okay, so I wanted to show you my notes over time and how I've come to this process that works. You'll see here, this is an old notebook, and I have all of these are notes that I would make when I would add the different additives to keep the paint from fading. So you can see I have a color here straight up. I would add salt early on as a preservative to keep the colors from fading. So you can see I have a whole notebook here of tests, and this is the butterfly pea tea that I use. It's a tea that's grown in Thailand. I used to boil that tea down, in a tea bag on those induction cookers I talked about last time. And these are the early results I was getting when I was, changing things with lemon juice, vinegar, all kinds of things, all kind of organic additives to try to keep the colors from fading. So this is a book of tests that really gave me early information on what I needed to do to keep the colors from fading. I'm going to show you this here. That is the butterfly pea flower, butterfly pea tea in its pure form. So this is what I was adding to the tea bag to steep to get those early on when I was trying to extract the color out of the flowers, the leaves, the beans. I was putting these into a tea bag like you would make a cup of tea, but I would boil them very quickly. Those induction cookers that I was using would boil water in around a minute and a half. So I was able to boil the water fairly quickly, but it was slowing down my painting process. So I had to find another way of making the paint. So I thought I have to find a quicker way to do this. And what I ended up doing was powdering the paints. So taking a normal espresso weight, I was able to pulverize the pigments and get them into a powder form. You can see this is still a little chunky. It's been sitting on the shelf a while. You can see here that is pure pigment. It just has to be broken up. They work. You can still use them even after they're in that state. So I was doing this myself. I was powdering my paints, pulverizing them into a powder form. Now I've moved toward getting the powders that I use pre-pulverized, right? They're already in powdered form. I don't need to, spend time grinding the pigments, making my own pigments. So it's still the same stuff you're going to find in coffees and teas, but now they're powdered. And I'm showing you the butterfly pea flower powder right here. And this is used in baking. Chefs will use this to colorize foods and things like that, drinks. I get all of my powders now in powder form already. I can find, they have rooibos powder, they have espresso powder, they have chrysanthemum powder, they have turmeric. All of this stuff comes in a powdered form. Next, I want to talk about the binder. So early on, I was experimenting with binders, watercolor binders and oils, and didn't get very good results. I got really good results with acrylic binders. So I landed with the golden GAC 200 medium. So Golden makes there are several products in this line of mediums. There's the GAC 800, I believe there's the 100, which I was trying. I landed on this 200 because I found 200 worked the best. And that's after, trying all of the products in that line. But so that's what I use for my binder. Now, I've played with so many things to keep the colors from fading. I was contacting paint companies. I contacted PPG Paints. I was working with a company in Germany. They were sending me samples. I would try so many different additives. I landed, and you can find this in your local hardware store, I landed with the Minwax polyacrylic. This is perfect. It allows me to, I add this to my medium, but it allows me to work with the paint, and the colors do not fade. It is unbelievable how well this works and preserves that color as I'm working on a piece. So that is my additive to keep, and this works for both. It works for UV and it works for that oxygen I was explaining last time. The fading is a result of exposure to sunlight, UV rays, and oxygen. So the paint doesn't oxidize, and it filters out the UV rays. It is wonderful. Solvent for this, it's an acrylic base. I use straight up water. And because it's an acrylic base and I'm working with acrylic binders, water works really, really well. It also keeps the brushes easy to clean. I use a soap and water when I'm cleaning my brushes. The last thing I want to talk about that I use, sometimes I will add this to my paint. It's a golden medium. It's a retarder. It keeps the paint workable for a longer period of time. So you may have used this with acrylics. You may have used, a retarder for watercolor. It keeps them wet. When I'm doing a lot of wet and wet brushing, it keeps the painting wet. It keeps the paint wet for a longer period of time. So I don't add it all the time. This is the one thing I will add on the fly. It's not part of my everyday medium. I just add it as I need it. Like I said, I was adding all of these things on the fly to the paint. Now I go ahead and I mix this into a bottle with a certain ratio, and that ratio is 50% binder. So 50% of this GAC 200, that's the binder, 40% polyacrylic. Remember, that's the additive that keeps the UV, and this is the additive that keeps the colors from fading. And I use 10% water. Those three things, the solvent, the additive, and the binder, are now in one bottle. So I can just add this directly to my pigment and start painting. It's come a long way since boiling coffee and tea and adding things on the fly. That's the process I call caffeinated color. Those are the materials I use. Stay tuned, stay caffeinated, and we'll see you next time.